banker, academician, entrepreneur, diplomat, vice minister, and now a career civil servant at the United Nations. Alex Mejía has held leadership positions in both the private and public sector. With 25 years of experience at the highest levels and now contributing to international affairs, Alex currently serves as the Director of the Division for People and Social Inclusion at the United Nations Institute for Training and Research. He's also the Director of the CIFAL Global Network, composed of 34 training centers around the world.
Welcome to Learning with Leaders, a podcast by CIFAL Global Network. Today, we have the privilege of speaking with an international example of leadership, Mr. Alex Mejía. Thank you for being here with us today and welcome to Learning with Leaders.
Thank you very much, Andrea. It's my privilege to be here.
So let's start from the beginning. Who is Alex Mejía?
Alex Mejía is a father, a husband, a son, a citizen that comes from Latin America, from Ecuador, that has always had a passion for education, for civil service, and for diplomacy. Since I can remember, I always like things international. And I always like to continue reading. Used to be books, now it's mostly, of course, on electronic devices. But I think it's a lifelong learning process. And that's how I define myself. But this wouldn't be complete if I miss to tell you that I'm also a man of faith. So my faith is very important for me. My family is very important for me. And my contribution to society through learning and through my work in the international field defines me.
So talking about that faith, did you ever envision yourself reaching this far?
No, actually. I always thought that I would die young for whatever the reason. But many people think so. However, as I'm growing older, I'm very blessed, I'm very privileged with all the years that I've been given, but I never really thought that I would be this far, really. No.
And what motivated you to start your career in an international field?
Yeah, that's a fundamental question for me. I think when I was a teenager, I heard for the first time, mostly from my grandfather, who was a very successful man and who worked in public administration for a long time, about all these international things that he would really care for. My father was more of a great man, my father, and I admire him, I love him so much, but very much a businessman. You know, he was dealing with what he had in front of him and very, very well and committed and successfully, as I say. But my grandpa had this bigger vision. Mm-hmm. At the time, I remember him reading the newspaper and always telling us, the younger generation, you have to read editorials. Because he will ask us and we will say, yes, we read the newspaper. Did you read the news today? Yes, we did. And then immediately he will say, and did you read editorials, right? So I learned very early on that you have to understand the bigger picture. You have to understand the whole of society, what's happening in your country, what is happening internationally. So very early, I decided that I wanted to be part. I didn't know how, but I wanted to have a career in international affairs. Yeah.
Actually, you started your career in 1998, if I'm not mistaken, as a counselor of the Ecuadorian embassy in Bogotá, Colombia. Mm-hmm. What do you remember of that period of time? Any reflection that would you like to share?
Yes, I'll tell you, it was a difficult time in Colombia, the legacy of the war that lasted so many decades. But just to show you how old I am, my career started in 1992. I was a banker. You have to forgive me for that. And I'm not joking, of course. There are also good bankers. I worked in banking for several years, and I was happy, successful, with a good salary, but I always had this thing in my heart that this is not really what I want to do in my life. My life is not about making money. So in that year, in 97 actually, I decided to change my career, to apply for our diplomatic academy and to become a trade counselor, a commercial counselor, and I had to go through training and then graduate. And then in 1998, I was sent. I'm originally from Ecuador, as I say. So the Foreign Service had these commercial counselors in several embassies that needed to be replaced. So I was part of that replacement. 5 of us were sent as counselors to different embassies, myself to Colombia. And I did the job for 2 or 3 years in advancing our trade portfolio, our exports, attracting foreign direct investment and so on. But more important, as you were saying, it was a difficult time for Colombia. Colombia is such a beautiful country, neighboring country with Ecuador. And the legacy of the first phase of narco trafficking was still there. Mr. Escobar, the famous narco trafficker, had been already eliminated, as they say in military terms. But the country was still reeling with and suffering the consequences of organized crime and the violence that guerrilla movement had imposed there, particularly in the rural areas. But we did live through some bombings in Bogota.
Wow.
And I learned a lesson there that remains with me, which is that peace is not only the absence of conflict. Peace is an ethos, a sentiment of the whole of society. No matter if the government tells you that you have peace and that we are in a peaceful society, if the citizen doesn't feel it, it doesn't exist. And that's what happened in Colombia at the end of the 90s. Beautiful country, great memories.
So, after everything that you are telling us, how was that experience change your life? Because at the end, if you are talking about that in that period of time where Colombia were a little bit, because I think after everything happened with Escobar, the organized crime was really confused about who is going to take the lead in that moment. So how was that experience, your first one as a diplomat?
Yeah, it was a career-defining experience because it did shape me beyond what I said. It gave me a commitment to join the national government beyond diplomacy. So I went from banking. I have a master's degree in business administration and in economy and finance, so it makes sense to go into banking. But I needed something else, so I went into diplomacy. But when I was a diplomat, I discovered what we call in English the civil service, right? The whole of government. How is it that a government works? What is the role of a government? What is public policy? What several ministers do? And I decided in Colombia that I wanted to join our national government, an line minister, as they call it. And that's what happened. I was very privileged to be invited to join the Ministry of Economy and Finance. So I went from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to the Ministry of Economy and Finance, and I became a deputy minister for the economy of the Republic of Ecuador.
How was that transition?
Difficult. Yeah,
it was really difficult to leave like diplomatic role behind and start with the minister that I guess is more political, right?
Very political, and particularly to everyone watching these videos on leadership. I'll tell you something. Public service is a great honor and a privilege, but it is not easy. Whoever tells you this is not correct is very demanding, very challenging. It will take the best of you, and it will push you to show also the worst of you. So part of leadership is to have emotional intelligence, to be able to manage yourself in the right way, because this transition, as you correctly implied, was not easy for me. I was catapulted at the age of 37, maybe earlier, to a ministry that was at the eye of the hurricane, as my minister used to say. And the president of the Republic, I served for president, fine gentleman, his name was Gustavo Noboa, and a man of faith too, who used to say in cabinet meetings, everything begins in 2 offices and everything ends in the same 2 offices. And my first time I was looking around to see what would be these 2 offices, and of course they all knew I was the new one. So after that I asked the president, Mr. President, what are those 2 offices? I will guess that one is the presidency, because everything begins in the presidency, and I'll come back to it. And I say, yes, and the other one is yours. So when you manage the national budget of a country, there is never enough money, and you have competing demands. So I was catapulted to the eye of the hurricane because I needed to do a technical work in trying to make decisions on how to use scarce resources and how to legislate and issue public policy and implement public policy that decides who gets what. So not an easy job because there's a lot of pressure. The executive branch has the mandate, but the legislative branch has a bigger mandate and an oversight capacity, so they put pressure on you, the parliament, our National Assembly at the time. And of course, the justice system is also very important. You keep funding it. But just to conclude, I learned a beautiful lesson from the president that I serve. He used to say very frequently in cabinet meetings and beyond, something that became a mantra for me, that says, he used to say, health and education, health and education, health and education. In whatever conversation, health and education, right? Meaning we were elected or appointed to serve our people, and the most basic needs are health and education. We are to do that, to ensure that. So it's a great responsibility that I was very honored to have very young, and that then shaped the rest of my career. But I did serve my nation in total in the public sector for several years, and I would love to go back one day, but that's into the future.
So the President of the Republic of Ecuador honored you in 2020 with the National Order of Merit. So that means that there is not a better example of an standard political leader. So I would like to ask you, what kind of qualities or attitude a person needs to have to handle that pressure that you were talking about, and many other things?
Yes, and I should mention something now that we are recording this video. It's the greatest honor in my career to have been awarded the National Order of Merit by the President of the Republic of Ecuador. Very important to say, because of my services to the Republic, because it's not for my career at the UN, even though it was implied in some speeches and so on. It was because of my time serving the Republic. But this recognition humbled me, really. I had to explain this to my daughters. My wife and I had 3 daughters. They are young adults now. And, they say, oh, congratulations, Dad, and this and that. You should be very, very proud. My oldest daughter told me, and I say the contrary. I feel very humble because I am being awarded because of the work of very many people, thousands of people that we had in our ministry and beyond. But for whatever the reason, the President wanted to honor me. And what I did in accepting that the National Order of Merit is to commit, what I say in passing, to serve the Republic until the end of my days. So this is why I want to go back to government. But again, that's another conversation. And then let me go back to what you say. I did learn that the most important trait of leadership is emotional intelligence. Never get prideful, never ever. That's a no-no. Because power and authority and all these places that perhaps life allows you to have, and titles that life will allow you to have, it can be deceiving and confusing. Emotional intelligence is situational awareness, what surrounds you, how you are part of an ecosystem, how you should conduct yourself, how you should remain humble regardless of the level that you achieve, or the title that you have, or the authority that is given to you. And more important than anything, how I believe you use positions of authority to serve, which is why I came to the UN, because I wanted to continue serving, but in the international field.
Currently, you're working as the director of the Division of People and also director of CIFAL Global Network. How is a day in a director life?
Not easy.
Not easy.
To whoever watch these videos on leadership, just remember there is something called politics, and this is a great organization, UNITAR, and the UN is a great entity. but there is politics everywhere. There is politics at home even. So once you reach certain levels in any organization, private sector too, there's a lot of politics in private corporations, but particularly in the public sector, in government or in an international organization like the UN. Now your job is beyond the obvious. It's not only technical. It implies representation. It implies managing influence. And in that sense, I also learned another definition of leadership that goes hand in hand with the definition of politics. So leadership is the ability to influence others. Politics, my definitions, there are many definitions, but my definition, the best definition that I have found of politics is the art of the possible, right? That you really want to serve society through the political dynamics, try to do as much as possible as you can. But that definition of politics shows that it's limited. Politics is limited, right? And public policy that emanates from the definition of policy, it's under that umbrella, the art of the possible. So within an organization like the UN or UNITAR, we also have politics. So as a director, I learned to navigate those policies, and the lessons of my time in a national government in politics served me well. And I have been here 12 years actually. Wow. In several positions. But now I do manage the Division for People and Social Inclusion at UNITAR, which is the biggest division in terms of beneficiaries. It's not the biggest in financial terms. But we do serve more than 120-some thousand beneficiaries every year. And I have the privilege of managing the CIFAL Global Network, which is 34 training centers around the world that are affiliated to UNITAR. 34 CIFAL centers with 34 directors and teams and so on. And I'm very privileged to do anything here with one ethos, one focus in mind, single-mindedly, navigating those politics, doing the technical work, leading teams, and myself producing content or delivering content, teaching, and so on, with one single focus: sustainable development, Agenda 2030, and the SDGs. I believe in them wholeheartedly, and I'm committed until the year 2030 and hopefully beyond to support the achievement of the Sustainable Development Goals through capacity building. That's what I do here.
So, focusing on CIFAL Global Network, because this podcast belongs to this program, what was the idea behind this program and this project with 34 centers around the world?
Yeah, it's one central idea. It's called decentralized cooperation. That cooperation should not be centralized. If you are in a government, not everything should happen from the capital. If you are in the UN, not everything should happen from the headquarters. So we basically go around. These 34 centers are hosted by other entities, not by UNITAR, a university or a ministry or a mayor's office or a foundation in a particular country or city. We do a due diligence, so they have to meet some criteria. But if you believe they could be a good partner, committed to capacity building and sustainable development, then we sign a partnership agreement because we believe in decentralized cooperation. So we cooperate with them. We did content, training packages, courses, seminars, and so on. We train them on how to deliver this content, and then we coordinate them. And perhaps we have some oversight, but they are truly independent. And I'm very happy to say that the model has worked for more than 2 decades. We just celebrated last December in the annual meeting of directors in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, 21 years of successes. So it's a beautiful model because it magnifies the impact that the UN could have or that UNITAR could have. If we had to pay, if we had to fundraise and get the money from donors to train 120, this year I think it will be 140,000 beneficiaries, one at the time, this is literally, we calculated once, more than $10 million. And we don't have to fundraise that money because we find partners that believe in us, believe in the model of decentralized cooperation, and then we join forces with them to do the job.
Actually, in the name is creating leaders, like I think one of the main mission is to train leaders or future leaders. So now that we are in learning with leader, I would like to know your idea of what is a leader.
Yeah. A leader is a person that wants to serve, period. If a leader wants to be served and he is in a position of leadership, he is not truly a leader. Mm-hmm. A leader is someone that can influence other people to achieve a common goal, to serve society, to serve others. The opposite that you sometimes see in the news, someone very arrogant, self-serving, always right, bullying everyone. They may have a chance for a couple of months or a couple of years, but sooner or later they will see their failures, because leadership again is about serving others.
So you just mentioned it, failure. Because talking about leadership, we always think about success and achievement. But what do you think about failure?
I think failure is very important. But the most important thing that I can tell you about failure is what to do with it. Because it will come to you sooner or later. To some people more, to some people less. But failure is a constant in life. It has to be. We were created. I told you that I'm a man of faith. And I believe that our Creator shaped us with that ability to deal with success and failure. With that constant quest to make yourself better, but to make mistakes and so on. So for me, the important thing when it comes to failure is to learn the lesson.
Do you have any anecdote or any memorable moment through your career, maybe at the beginning, maybe now, maybe a few years ago, that do you think it will be interesting to the listener and the viewers? No?
I do. And it comes from our dinner table. One of my daughters, the three of them got educated here at the International School of Geneva, which is an outstanding international school. Then they went into university in the UK. Two of them graduated. One is a medical doctor. The other one has a master's degree in international affairs and very successful. And the younger one is still doing her bachelor's. And one day they always say, today she should have been 16 or something. The teacher was explaining government and how government works. And he mentioned public policy. And then when we finish and we stay talking with him, I say, my father is an expert in public policy. And I say, you shouldn't have said that. And he said, oh, the teacher told my daughter, then you should know something about public policy. And my daughter said, oh, I know zero. So that night she told me, explain to me what is public policy. And I want to take advantage of this opportunity for whoever is watching to really understand the society where they live in, to really understand their governments, how they operate on their behalf. And this little unknown instrument called public policy, which affects the life of everyone, mine included, you included, and you watching as well. So because I didn't have a better way to explain to a 16-year-old public policy, I had a piece of paper here. So I simply did this with a piece of paper. It has a particular sound, right? And she told me, public policy is a piece of paper. And then I say, public policy, it's a decision that is then published in a piece of paper. It can be real paper or digitally, who cares? But it's a decision of a government on how to solve a problem, how to deal with it, how to manage resources to solve a problem, to solve a need, and so on. And then it affects us so much, for good or bad. And to make a long story short, the next day or the next class, again talking about public policy, my daughter raised her hand and she said to the teacher, I know what is public policy. And she said, oh, of course, tell us what it is. And she did. And the teacher said, a piece of paper. So my daughter said, yes, a piece of paper. So she was a little embarrassed, but then she managed to explain. And I simply want to say that to whoever believes that she or he can give something to society by working in the public sphere, in the public sector, in a public organization, in an NGO, whatever that goes beyond just making money with your life and your career, please do so. I guarantee be that person that they will be satisfied when the moment comes.
I want to highlight that I didn't expect that answer, because normally when I do this question, we talk about big politicals or big leaders, and you talk about your family. That speaks a lot about you. And I want to I'm wonder what role play your family in your life?
The biggest role. My wife of 27 years is also my best friend, and I love her dearly. I hope she feels the same, but I learned through her that it's not that some people told me that after many years of marriage, you still care very much, but not really that original love. For me, it's the other way around, thanks to her. I learned from my mom faith, a tenet of who I am, the center that defines me, my faith. I learned from my grandma care and love and responsibility. And so 3 women in my life, in my family, the family that God gave me, the family that I chose to form with my wife, and then women in my life, for whatever the reason, God gave me 3 daughters. So it's a matriarchal. I'm the minority in my home, truly. My family is the most important part of my life, in addition to my faith, and they have shaped me and helped me and nurtured me and uphold me. And they continue to do so, and I'm the luckiest man alive.
So beautiful, so beautiful. We would like to conclude this interview, this amazing interview. Thank you very much, Alex Mejía, for all your insight. Just asking a question that we are going to ask all our guests. We already did with Nikhil, so now it's your turn. Which is your formula for success?
Learn hard and work hard. There is no good leadership for people that are not really invested and committed to learn. And this is beyond university. And there is no good leaders that I know that are, very comfortable in working, just on the basic necessities. Life gives us a limited span of years, and we are to make the most of them. And it's again and again, sorry if I sound like a broken record, but I think it's one of the best things that I learned in my life, and I want to transmit it, particularly to anyone interested in leadership and in growing in leadership skills. It's a lifelong learning. You have to understand that it's a lifelong learning. Never stop reading. Be very careful with what you select to consume through electronics, because good quality content makes you grow, as opposed to just waste your time, hundreds and thousands of hours, just watching venal, shallow things, So it's a lifelong learning.
Quick question, because you're mentioning reading, 2 titles that we need to read. Or 1.
Well, I had to tell you, but this is very personal. I respect all faiths. In my case, I actually read the Bible every day. I'm not proselytizing, I know where I am, this is the UN, and we are apolitical and we don't proselytize any faith, but that's the book for me. It shapes me, it forced me, and it's alive, and it continues to do so after so many years. It's a great legacy from my grandpa. I remember my grandfather, always a very busy man, very successful, high-profile person. He had time, and so on. So that's number 1. And the second, I like very much reading about the future, and I read Homo Deus from Mr. Harari, and I don't agree with all what he says, but quite an interesting thing to think about what is the quest of humanity, what is going to be ahead, the use of technology, the quest for immortality, at the same time that we have societies that are more and more unequal. I believe in social justice, so I understand that our society has many challenges. So it will make you think. Harari has his own views, but yes, Homo Deus is an interesting book, the latest that I read.
Okay, so I have homework to read Homo Deus. So thank you very much, Mr. Alex Mejía, for this time that you spend with us, and all the viewers will love to see what is behind the leader. But before you leave, We would like you to sign our banner.
I'll be happy to do so. And thank you again for this interview, and thank you guys for recording it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Muchas gracias.
Gracias.